Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Coffee and Football, presented by Adam Lowy and the Lowy Law Firm. I'm your host, Blake Monroe, where I'm joined each and every morning by Bobby Burton and Jerry Hamilton. Guys, we are 31 days away from kickoff, but more importantly, fall practice is here. It begins today. I don't think there's a bigger storyline out there right now than that. So what are we expecting today, fellas?
We're expecting a little football on the grass this afternoon. That's what we're expecting. Texas gets after it about 2:45 this afternoon. Jerry, myself, Rod Baber's going to be there with us as well. Longhorns back on the field after coming off a 12-2 season a year ago. A top 5 recruiting class, a number of portal additions that are exciting. All in all, it is time for football at the University of Texas later today. I got to tell you, I was at the coordinator availability yesterday, media availability, guys. Kyle Flood's excited. Pete Kwiatkowski is trying to, get in the lab and get 5% better tackling. And Jeff Banks is pretty excited about his kicker and his return game, but has some concerns at punter. All of that said, there's a lot more that was said yesterday than that, obviously, but that's a quick summation. Just ready to go on today. First day of fall camp starts today. Kids were moving in to their training camp places yesterday. I don't know if you guys saw that on social media or not, but a lot of stuff going on the 40 acres.
Yeah, I think it's there aren't as many new faces in July as there used to be, because 17 to 21 guys are early enrollees, and the majority of the portal guys are in for January spring practice. So not as many new faces. That's one major change in the last 4 or 5 years of college football. But look, the excitement level. I can tell you who my bet is, who will be have a ton of energy today. Silas Bolden. He wasn't here for spring practice, first practice as a Texas Longhorn. Last year in college football. First look at Bill Norton and Jermaine Lole today physically, where those guys are at. Where's Dre Bledsoe at physically? Obviously, one of the things I noticed yesterday at press conference, coordinator press conferences, Kyle Flood talked about how good of a player Alfred Collins is. I thought that was interesting, right? Because that's not a direct question. It was more of your guys going against players. That's kind of the answers I look for. So first, I know a lot of eyes will be on the defensive line, which will have eyes on the defensive line, the new secondary, right? The Javion Cole, first look at Javion Cole. And these are really key players for the 2024 Texas team if they're going to maximize this team. I mean, Silas Bolden, Bill Norton, Jermaine Lole, Javion Cole. Those are 4 really key players for if Texas is going to maximize this team this year. So first look at those guys. Michael Kern at punter, you mentioned that. Ian Ratliff obviously had a pretty good spring for Texas out of Atascocita High School. Michael Kern, the scholarship punter, he was not an early enrollee. What's he going to look like? I think Jeff Banks kind of spoke to his ability, but still has to go prove it. So there's that position as well. Another thing Kyle Flood said yesterday in his coordinator press conference, listen to that back, was that Cam Williams has really changed his body. So that 335, 340 number, if that is correct for Cameron Williams, I should say, Cameron Williams, if that is a correct number for Cameron Williams, then that's the least he's weighed since he's been at Texas by 15 to 20 pounds. That's significant for Cameron Williams.
I'm ready, man. You said nobody will be bopping around there more than Silas Bolden. It may be Bobby Burton. I'm excited, man. I can't tell y'all, whenever the football goes out on the grass, it's just a different feeling, frankly. Someone mentioned 31 days away. Yes, that's Aaron Ross days away.
Yeah.
By the way, you know who else it is? It's now Trey Moore.
Yes.
Days away as well. The newcomer from UTSA is wearing 31 this year, I believe. You guys are talking about the coffee that everyone's drinking a little bit. We do that every so often. Hey, I'm trying something new. I'm trying the San Antonio brand coffee from HEB. You know, they have the different.
I have every morning.
Yeah. Loving it. It's good stuff, man. Good stuff. Hey, before we get going, we have a special guest coming in about 8:20 this morning. Will Matthews, the former Texas running back / fullback, led the way for Cedric Benson. He will be joining us at around 8:20. He's also the sideline reporter now for the Longhorn radio network. Before we do that, we're going to say thank you to our sponsor. Each and every Wednesday morning's Coffee and Football brought to you by our friend Adam Lowy over at the Lowy Law Firm with 20-plus years experience in helping injured parties in car wrecks, truck wrecks, automobile accidents of any kind, including motorcycle, even ATV accidents. If you think you might be due compensation and want to seek legal representation, LoweyLawFirm.com. They'll give you a free consultation, absolutely free, no strings attached. Thanks, Adam and his group. I'm actually having lunch later today with Adam as well. So see you soon, Adam.
All right. Well, as you said, we do have Will Matthews coming up here shortly. Jerry gave his takes on the press conference, but Bobby, I'm curious to get yours as well. What were some of your main takeaways from the coordinator conferences yesterday?
I talked a little bit about this on the live stream last night with Rod, and he and I agreed. Pete Kwiatkowski was a little more revealing than either Jeff Banks or Kyle Flood. That doesn't mean he just the defense is cloaked in a little more secrecy this year, I think. And what I mean by that is you have the addition of Johnny Nansen, right? And so his addition, what are they going to do? What's it going to look like? They also have more guys coming in late, like Bill Norton, like Javion Cole, like Jermaine Lole. And so how that defensive coordinator sees things was very important. And also there's some other facts there. On offense, I asked Kyle Flood point blank, what's y'all's goals? And he gave the pat answer, which is the right one, to be the most explosive offense in the country. Okay, all for that. I asked Pete Kwiatkowski that, and he kind of hemmed and hawed a little bit and goes, to be 5% better, essentially, in tackling on the back end. They finished 33rd in the country in pass defense efficiency last year. What I thought was interesting is some other stats he named. 3rd in the country in pass attempts against last year. That's how good Texas was against the run. Teams just had to pass. So even though the passing stats look out of place a little bit as far as yardage, 33 in pass defense efficiency is not horrible. Okay, he wants to be better, but it's not horrible. I would add this for you guys, Blake and Jerry. The other thing he added was he thought that a lot of the passing yardage came after the catch. Not a lot, but, quote, too much came after the catch. That's something that they think they're trying to deal with better athletes in the secondary this year, he hopes. Will be helpful there. But other than that, I mean, there's just so much to go over. We have a lot of it. I posted a couple of different articles, again, one this morning as well on ontexasfootball.com. Guys, go over there and check that out. And feel free to ask questions over there on ontexasfootball.com. Become an OG. Get all your questions answered, and we'll be there for you right now. And so my point to everybody is I felt like everything went kind of as planned yesterday. Texas probably going to play a little bit more. PK also said Texas may play a little bit more single high safety look in the SEC. That'll help them against the run to get a little bit more physical. So some small things like that, guys. So we got to be ready for it.
Yeah, I thought a couple of interesting things there too is I think everything's going to tie together if Texas is going to see marked improvement as far as yards after catch. Again, it's going to ultimately come down to pressure on the quarterback. And that doesn't mean sack numbers. I have 39, 40 circled as the sack number because that's meaningful in college football if you look at it. But the more pressure you can get, the more the opponent, if you become a team that when a team gets ready to play you knows you're going to get to the quarterback, they're going to work to get the ball out quicker. So you become easier to defend in a sense that your defensive backs aren't going to be expected to cover for 4 or 5 seconds as much. So I think that really ties into secondary this year and how aggressive Texas can be in the secondary, and how keeping the players in space to more of a minimum. Because, look, a lot of people want to tackle Xavier Worthy too, but they couldn't. So, I mean, there's going to be athletes. Barry Brown's going to make plays. If he gets the ball against Texas for Kentucky, he's going to make a play. He's a playmaker. So I think the biggest thing is pressure on the quarterback consistently and becoming that team. The opponent goes into that game saying, they're going to get to us. We have to get the ball out quicker. I think that's a big key.
All right.
Practice today about 2:45. Kyle Voshkas. 2:45 today, 2:45 tomorrow. Night practice on Friday. I think we have our guest here, Blake.
Yep,
I think
he does. I'm going to bring him in while you introduce him, Jerry.
Yeah, so look, Will Matthews, tremendous player at Texas, sideline reporter for the Texas Longhorns. Look, he's been here through it all. He was in Matt's second recruiting class in 2000, hoisted a Rose Bowl trophy, right? Had part of some really big wins at the University of Texas, played in the NFL. Now he does it from the sideline, Will. Thanks for joining us. You get different set of eyes now without the pads on, but from the field perspective like you've always been. So thank you very much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. Always a huge fan of this show. You guys always listening to hearing what's going on, and shout out to everybody. And thank you guys for having Bobby, Jerry, Rod, wherever you're at. Love you, brother.
Rod's on radio right now. Will, hey, Will, I got a question for you, buddy. You saw the transformation, and you've seen the transformation since Steve Sarkisian got here, right? You've been on the sideline now. What is it? What number year is it for you?
Yeah, we're going on four years.
So you've been here the whole. You saw from the start to where it is now. What is the single thing you think of when you think of that transition over the years that you've seen at Texas under Steve Sarkisian?
It's been really fun to get to see Coach Sark do his thing, because when I came in for the transition of Coach Mack, I was a player. There is a different dynamic that you see from that level. Like Coach Mack is kind of your dad, and there's this you don't really understand how big the opportunity is at Texas until you actually get there. But as I've been able to watch from this side, I've just seen really the steadfastness. If you can boil it down to one thing that I've seen from Sark continually from the day he got here, was he's been himself. He's been steadfast in the culture that he has tried to put into that team. He's been successful, and he's continued to do it. It's just a steadfastness over time.
Consistency matters in life. I mean, you want the same guy to be your coach as a freshman as you do a senior, right? I mean, you need that to continue to improve yourself and give yourself a platform to really just become who you can be. Will, another thing that you used to do is you blocked for a guy named Cedric Benson.
Yeah.
And I wish today, I got to be honest, I wish today it was 32 days to the Longhorns games, but it's actually 31. Cedric was a good friend of yours. We have not talked about him enough on this show. Give us your thoughts on Cedric Benson. I know he's passed now a couple of years, but you were a great friend with him, and give us just a little testimonial if you would.
It's just so Cedric is one of those kind of like marquee people, not just a marquee player, but marquee people. Like when we were growing up together, Cedric was what I thought invincibility was. When you saw the way Ced did his thing, the focus that he had on the field, the intensity that he had on the field, and the love that he showed for his friends and relationships off the field, it was just so important and so needed, and you don't really see that kind of focus in the game. Last night I was watching the replay of the ladies get the gold in the Olympics, and Simone Biles, I could see that kind of focus, like Sid had in her eyes right before she becomes the most decorated Olympic athlete ever. But that's what he had. He had the difference. He had something special, and he will be missed every day.
Hey, Will, I wanted to ask you, that was great, by the way. I wanted to ask you about similarities in what you saw being part of a Texas team that was rising, eventually got to the top of college football. Are there some similar? It's different times, I know, but do you see similarities because you're around the guys a lot in mindset, in belief? Is there a certain time when that belief truly kicks in that you can get this thing done?
Yeah, I see some interesting similarities. I was talking to somebody the other day. I think I was on with Craig Way, and if you could look back to Mac's tenure, he came in with Rick. Ricky was a marquee player that really put Texas on the map at that time, that gave Coach Mac really the cloud cover so that he could cook. You could kind of just put it on Rick's shoulders. And look at Sark. It kind of the same thing as Bijan came in. Sark was able to let a lot of the things that he had inside of the offense cook because he had such a marquee player. And then right after Ricky, draft pick, number one, top 5 draft picks, top 5 recruiting classes, bam, 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 bam. And they've done the same thing. And you know what, being a running back, I always want to give as much credit as I possibly can to the running game. I think when the running game is strong at Texas is able to catapult, and that's really where all of the huge and incredible success comes from. And really in the locker room, even watching guys like Bijan, Jordan Whittington, even moving into this team as we're waiting for that next, who is that guy? Guys are just, they believe it. They got the swagger. They look like Texas. They look like us back in the day. They know when they get on the field that they're going to win, and I can't wait to see them this fall.
God, I love to hear that. I have a question for you. You mentioned the situation there at running back. I was listening to Kyle Flood yesterday, Will, and he said something about Tashard Choice that I thought was, really smart. And not only was he talking about the running game and Cedric Baxter, Jaden Blue, he also mentioned Trey Wisner. But what he said about Tashard Choice was really interesting. They were talking about pass protection. And he said pass protection is a team sport. While the offensive line is the integrity of it, the backbone of the pass protection, he said the running backs are really what fill the gaps. And he said anytime you have a running backs coach that has played in the NFL like Tashard Choice has, they know how important pass protection is, and they coach their players to do that. You've been in the NFL.
Yeah.
Do you see that from Tashard? I mean, he's developing them not just as runners and receivers, but as blockers and pass protectors too.
So in the NFL, there's you were really, 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 really responsible for that defensive end. You have got to help that tackle on the right and left side. And really where you see Coach Choice's influence is the chip out of the backfield on the way to the flat. And you're gonna see Blue, you're gonna see Baxter, and especially Wisner, as much as he's in, especially on that kind of slot back, running back, receiver. There's gonna be a lot of times where you're gonna see that defensive end coming up field so fast, and all of a sudden you'll see an arm or the side of their body go up into the air as that running back goes by. And those are the small things that takes a team from getting to the playoffs to actually winning in the playoffs and being able to contend and be able to beat a team like Georgia for a national championship.
Hey, Will, I wanted to ask you this, and I know you got to get going, but we ran into each other at the SEC Media Days. What was your biggest takeaway from SEC Media Days? Because I know we talked a few minutes, but what was your biggest takeaway? You've been to Big 12 Media Days too. What was your biggest takeaway, and how excited are you for the move?
Oh my gosh, it was as we stood there just standing as Coach Sark gave his, I don't know, what do you call it, his dissertation. I mean, it was the feeling of we belong. It was a feeling of that we're not scratching our way into this conference to try to get a little bit of market share so that we can win. No, we're at home. We're a part of this. It was more of like long lost. I haven't seen my friends in a long time. We've been waiting for you, LSU, Alabama, Georgia. We've been waiting. We've been getting ready. We've been getting ready so that we can come and be a part of this conference. And I mean, and you remember just how grand it was. And you walked right down that corridor and you saw hundreds, and literally, I'm not lying there, hundreds of radio, TV, ESPN, from the top dogs all the way down to guys getting coffee. It was awesome. And it was great.
Yeah, I see. That's where Jerry. That's where what we've been talking about, Blake, is when we were there. The Big 12, there were like 12 to 15 radio road tables, and times that by 10.
Yeah,
in the SEC, and Will's right. I completely agree, Will. Will, go ahead, Jerry.
I got one last thing for Will.
Yeah.
Because you were on the sidelines for the Bama game last year in Tuscaloosa. Bobby was in the stadium. There you go. You were there. What was it like being on the sidelines for that game?
Yeah.
And did you see something with the team after that win that was easily visible to your eye on the sidelines moving forward?
Yeah, it's the time when you believe. I remember Vince Young being Vince Young for the first time, and us all beginning the journey of believing as he got to the space where Texas played USC to win the national championship. It was all about belief. When we were down to Oklahoma State, 35 points at halftime, Vince walks out after halftime and dances, and he's like, "Y'all ready?" And we go and we put it on them, and then that we get the Rose Bowl. The guys believing they smell it, and once you get a bit of it on you, like, you stink from it. Success is smelly.
I love that term. Love it, Will. Success is smelly.
Yeah.
Good stuff, man. Will, hey, tell people what you're doing these days outside of Longhorn Network. Give your other employer a shout if you would. Feel free to, please.
Yeah, somehow I'm a commercial banker with Truist Bank. We do some really good stuff. We're the banking sponsor for the Longhorns. So as well as being on the sidelines, I get to do that. And right now I'm training for the New York Marathon to raise money for marathon kids, which is, how did this fullback run 26.2? I have no idea, but I'm going to figure it out. So just out there in the community, being a good Longhorn,
Good stuff, Will. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, buddy.
Thanks, Will. Thank you very much, man. We'll talk to you soon.
Hook 'em.
All right.
I love the perspective that he can give being on the sidelines, because there's the one thing is, it takes you back, like when I was a ball boy, and you can see guys' reactions, right? When things are good, and you start to see, oh, this team actually kind of believes in themselves. You could see it at a young age, but for him, being a former player, to see it from that perspective, and then go back in his memory recall of things that happened at Texas as Mac was building it. Yeah, where the chat got the VY. Yes, absolutely. But we got something to get into later about the ESPN article, but there's still, it's Justin Blaylock. It's Jonathan Scott, Bobby. It's all those guys. When you're building a program, that belief has to click for everybody. And yeah, there's normally a leader of the group, right? And sometimes there's a super freak on the field. Sometimes there is. And we're just talking about Texas when he was there in Texas now, but you can look at any of these teams and they had to believe. Not everybody had VY. And there's a lot of teams that have won a national championship. Okay. The belief comes from there's a certain point in time where all those guys on the team look at each other and say, we got this. We can do this. And Will's got a great perspective there. That's why I hope we get him on more during the season.
Absolutely. Success is smelly. All right. That's that. He's right. Once you get it you don't want to give it up. It's just and it had been a long time coming for the Longhorns, right? Once you smell success and that stink gets on you, you don't want to give it up ever. I want to say something else, and this is away from football for a second. How many Longhorns on here have we had that are just, model citizens? Geez. Does Will Matthew not sound like someone you want representing the University of Texas? Just good stuff. And it hasn't just been him. It's been a number of ex-players. I want to shout out to those guys. A lot of them, and I want to say this too, a lot of them on Saturday or Sunday, I can't remember which day, were at Schultz's Beer Garden tipping the cap to Steve McMichael, who's going into the Hall of Fame, right? A former, this is a 2 different decades prior to Will Matthews, and then they're still going back 50 years later and tipping their cap to their teammate. I think it's just a camaraderie there and something really nice that you can say about the University of Texas. Just a strong interview there and strong person representing the University of Texas out there as a sideline reporter on game days.
I want to bring something up real quick, Blake. Sandman23 said, y'all need to get BJ and Sloan Thomas on here. Well, so we had BJ Johnson on here, and he set it off because he talked about the Urban Meyer recruiting story from Notre Dame. And by the way, Bobby, to your point, there was something put out yesterday on social media. I linked it on TexasFootball.com that 41 members of the Florida Gators 2008 national title team have been arrested at some point in their existence. That's like half your scholarship roster, by the way. But yeah, so there's also, if you go into the archives, it was from the Cole Pittman Memorial Golf Tournament with CJ Vogel, and I attended that. I did a sit-down interview with Roy, BJ, and Sloan. If you go back through our archives on the channel here, you can find that. And it was actually a pretty funny interview that listened to 3 of those guys kind of reminisce and talk about Texas at the same time. By the way, Roy Williams' son is a freshman tight end at Texas State this year. It kind of flew under the radar in recruiting because he was at Midland Legacy and not at Odessa Permian. So I don't think maybe there was as much made out about it. But he played at Midland Legacy. He is a freshman tight end at Texas State. So if you're looking for a second team to watch a little bit this year, the legend's son, 6'3" and a quarter, about 225, is a freshman tight end for G.J. Kinney down there at Texas State.
Good nugget there, Jerry. Good nugget.
Yep. All right, well, let's talk a little recruiting, as obviously that's still going on. Jerry, what's the latest? I know we got some decisions coming up, but what else is happening?
Yeah, so, look, I spoke to somebody close to Aiden Anding's recruitment yesterday. So thought that was interesting. Conversation, kind of how it went at LSU. What was Corey Raymond's message to Aiden Anding? And that message was more, we didn't offer you early. We wanted to get you at camp. I wanted to work you out, watch you work out in person. So how much of a dent did LSU make in that? I don't know. I think Texas and Arkansas were well ahead going into that visit. I think the one thing there is LSU's just pushing him. You know what? Just come back for a game this year. Still got an official visit on the table. He went down there with his mom and 2 of his 2 brothers, just like he did the Texas trips, including the official visit. So LSU got the entire family down. So it'll be interesting. I will say this: I don't want to sell Arkansas short in this recruitment either. And I know people are like, "What?" They've done a great job. They've been on him probably longer than the other school has, and they've done a very good job, I think, identifying kind of who he is and how that would fit at Arkansas as a student. Look, he's a kid who he rides horses. He walks a horse every day, just walks him and his horse go on a walk, right? Does this smaller environment, is that something that fits him more? We'll see. I do think from talking to the person close that he wants to have a decision before his senior season begins. Now, do I think that 100% locks down and ends his recruitment? I don't, but I do think he'd like to have a decision by the time his senior season begins. Now, they've already started practice at Ruston High. They're one of the favorites, obviously, to go back and try to win state again. And in basketball, he's not an early enrollee. He'll stay for basketball because they're the favorite to win basketball as well. They have a young sophomore to be that's one of the best two-sport players in the country at tight end, defensive end, and kind of a forward on the basketball court. He's an elite recruit. So he will not be an early graduate. But again, Aiden Anding, we don't have a date for him, but we do think he'll play before the season. Blake, I don't know if you have there's our upcoming decisions. And we only put the first 4 on there. Obviously, Jamie French is August 30th. He's on there as well. But Khalil Lockett, August 7th. That one's coming up. DJ Sanders, August 8th, around there. Fasusi, 22nd. He said the 21st. We think it's the 22nd. It could be the 21st. It goes back and forth. Jonah Williams on the 24th. Then you have Jamie French on the 30th. The one thing I'll say about Jamie French, I put it on TexasFootball.com and here on a recruiting breakdown yesterday, is I think it's Texas or Miami. I think that's where this is coming down to. I think Texas has been in a good position for a while. I think Miami threw the kitchen sink at it. And we'll see what he does on August 30th. It's his mom's birthday. That's why he picked the date he did. But I think Texas continues to have really good conversations with Jamie French post the visits last week in the LSU and Miami. But I do think I've kind of wondered who was going to be the team to challenge, who was going to be the challenger of Texas in this recruitment. For a while, it looked like it'd be Tennessee. I do think it will be Miami. The other thing on Aiden Anding, I will say, is Steve Sarkisian and him already talked Sunday night. So this week. So look, Texas is all in on Aiden Anding. So that has not changed. Then we'll see what Michael Terry, we expect in August, kind of like Aiden Anding. August, Nick Brooks, who's moved back to the Atlanta area from Cedar Rapids, is September. We think mid to late September there. Manfremo could be the latest of all those decisions. He could keep pushing it back. So we'll see what he decides there. Will it be August? Will it be September? Will this thing even go into November? We'll see with Madden Framo. I think there's more unknown for his announcement than anybody right now.
Good stuff, man. For sure. Well, we got a lot of questions coming in, some super chats. We're going to get to those here in just a moment. But first, Jerry, I'm going to let you keep on talking and tell folks out there about Manscaped.
Yeah, man. Look, it's that time. I'm getting in the car after this, headed to Austin, and you know what I have in my hands, right, or in my travel bag? I got the 5.0. I got the Handyman. I am ready for anything. It's sizzle alert this summer. Yeah, there you go. Let the only thing smoking at your barbecue be the grill, not your grooming game. Get ready for the ultimate cookout season with Manscaped. Whether you're flipping burgers or cannonballing into the pool, make sure your meat looks neat. The meat's got to look neat, guys. With the Performance Package 5.0 Ultra, fire up your grooming routine and keep it cool with Manscaped. Head to manscaped.com and use code ONTEXAS, all caps, for 20% off plus free shipping. Let's make this summer sizzle for all the right reasons. And I'm here to tell you, the start of the season is 31 days away. That means the Colorado State game is going to be dang hot. So the Crop Soother Ball Aftershave Lotion is big here. Post-trim care never felt so good with the Crop Soother Ball Aftershave Lotion. Say goodbye to painful chafing and hello to all-day comfort, even while manning the grill or attending the Colorado State game. Manscaped on Texas, all caps.
Good stuff.
I don't know how you do that.
It's glorious, ain't it?
I just don't. I mean, with a smile the whole way through, my man. It's the only way to do it. Hey, Blake, we need to introduce someone. As a matter of fact, this is a guy that's helping us with our advertising. We want to introduce him real quick. Cody Clearman, welcome in. Cody, what did you think of that ad read for Jerry Hamilton this morning?
I agree with Blake 100%, Bobby. It's just glorious. It's one of the best parts of starting my daily routine. I love hearing that Manscaped read from Jerry. So good.
Cody, tell people what you do for us and how they can get involved if they'd like to.
Yeah, Bobby, thank you so much. So, yeah, I'm just here with On Texas Football. I handle all of our sponsorships and partnerships. We are really, really excited about what's coming up for the 2024 football season in the SEC. Guys, I said this last night, but I'll say it again. There is no greater time in the history of University of Texas football than to really get on board with what's going on right now. The excitement is all around us. We have a lot of outlets and different platforms that are open right now for different businesses to partner with us. So if you're a business owner, if you have a business owner in your family or somebody in your circle of influence that owns a business that you would think might be interested in advertising on one of the platforms that On Texas Football offers, much like you see like a Manscaped advertisement, we can throw up some good read-ins for you and your company as well. But you can reach us, guys. This is the email address, ontexasfootball@gmail.com. So please, any interest or inquiries with whatever you have, please just reach out to us. Let us know. Like I said, it's an exciting time. We've got some wonderful existing sponsors, and we're looking for some more really impactful sponsors for the upcoming months and even year. So please, ontexasfootball@gmail.com. You can reach myself, Bobby, or whoever you need to with that initial conversation. I would love to follow up with you about that, but we're really excited about what's coming on. So.
All right, Cody. I appreciate you, buddy. Thanks for reaching out and coming on this morning.
Absolutely.
You're going to have to give me that trailer hitch in the background there with the Longhorn logo.
So here's what it looks like. So as you can see, I had a little ding up, but I'm telling you what, man, these things are awesome. So, and that's his logo right there.
That would look good back in the boat into the lake, guys.
That's right. So you let me know.
Thanks, Cody. Appreciate you, buddy. Hook 'em. Good stuff, guys. Yeah, Jerry, you and Manscaped, it's going to go down in YouTube/podcast lore for all time to come. And your read on this deodorant thing is the new one for me. I'd finally gotten used to the regular Manscaped read, and then you add the deodorant. Now I can't, you'd think after 6 months I could get over this stuff. I just
gotta head the DKR prepared this year. It's gonna be hot in that stadium. Don't leave with chafing. Manscaped's got you covered.
Oh boy. Blake, what else you got for us today? We got any questions?
I was about to say,
on the chat?
We got people covered with their questions here. Let's go ahead and just jump right into them. We got some super chats that we need to knock out. First, no stranger to super chats, Jack. Thank you, Jack. He says, hearing Will Matthews reminded me of something I've wondered for years. What's happened to the fullback position in college football?
It's evolved into an H-back. It really has, because they use, like even Jeff Banks talked about this yesterday. The cross block in the A gap is now on a trap play is now coming from the tight end /H-back rather than a head up block from a fullback. Now there are teams out there that effectively run a fullback. I mean, the San Francisco 49ers is, example A1. They have a tremendous guy. And I think that's where it's gone. I think it largely evolved into this H-back type role. I will say this, and this is going to be interesting, Jerry, with this what Rod calls the pony package, the two running backs, where they're side by side in the pistol look or shotgun formation. Does that put us back using more fullbacks in the future? Because a lot of times Cedric Baxter becomes a quasi fullback on that play and lead blocks. Just something to watch. That's where it's gone though. I think it's really evolved into an H-back role because they can get out in the flat a little bit better, etc. Jack, motion them out easier, more versatile in the passing game for sure. That's what's happened. Hey, Jack also had a question the other day that I said I would get an answer to, and I appreciate one of our listeners reaching out to me. It is a Big 12 official that reached out to me. I don't know if he's still with the Big 12, given that all the upheaval there. But he said Jack had asked me when the communication with player and coach starts via the earpiece that we're now going to have this helmet communication. It is immediately when the ref puts the ball in play or the play clock starts. So as soon as that 40-second clock starts or 25-second clock starts, that then and only then is when the helmet communication begins. So there's no right as soon as the play is over. The ball's out of bounds, the communication does not start until they set the ball ready for play and the referee starts the play. So, Jack, hope you got that answer, bud.
All right. Our next super chat comes from Justin Galton. Thank you, Justin. He says, can we get the On Texas football experts to give NFL comparisons for Lockett and French? Hook 'em.
Oh, French for me is somebody. So I go with two guys people have seen very recently, just as a snapshot. It doesn't mean they're perfectly comparisons. There some guys there just aren't a comparison for. Jamie French to me is very similar to AD Mitchell from a number of perspectives. I think he may be a little better after the catch. Initial movement making people miss after the catch. But they're similar to me in that body control, tracking a football in the air, frame. Look, they're very similar size guys, having seen both of them in person coming out of high school. AD Mitchell ended up, 203 pounds at the NFL Combine. I think Jamie French, he may be a half-inch taller when he's done growing. We'll see, or maybe right around there. But frame-wise, I think they're going to be very similar. Like Jamie French was 6 foot and maybe 172 pounds a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. Now he's obviously 185, trending up towards 190 before he gets to college. I think he's going to be a 205-pound guy. He's got good length. He's got big hands. He can really track a football. He's got great body control. He is a really talented route runner, naturally gifted as far as the ability to decelerate and then create separation. I think he's faster than you think. Obviously, AD Mitchell proved to be faster than anybody who thought he would time. Now, those guys trained for the combine, right? I don't think anybody thinks AD Mitchell played at 4.35, but he was still faster than you would think he was, and probably faster on a football field than a track time would suggest he is. So that's one for me. Khalil Lockett, a little bit different frames, but maybe similar to Jalen Polk athletically, who was from Lufkin, Texas Tech, transferred to Washington, ended up being a second-round pick. They're different because Lockett's got really, really long arms, and he's got 11-inch hands on a 6'2" wide receiver. Biggest hands I've ever seen on a 6'2" wide receiver. But as far as that athleticism, Jalen Polk, I think, ran 4.52, 4.53 at his pro days at the combine. So there are a lot of guys faster than Jalen Polk if you lined up and raced and whatnot. And I think that's the same with Khalil Lockett. But I think what Khalil Lockett has is he's got a tremendous catch radius. Like Jamie French, great body control, can really track a football, can go up and snatch the ball in traffic over the middle. So I would think in terms like that. I think Jamie French is a little bit higher end athlete on a football field than Khalil Lockett as far as testing and times and speed and maybe initial quickness after the catch and maybe how that plays out one day. Hopefully both those guys for their futures are in the NFL Combine one day. But that's a snapshot of just guys that may be fans of watching the last couple of years.
And then our next question, fellas, comes from Horn 7, and it's a loaded question. What does national championship level football look like early in fall camp?
Man, I tell you what, it looks like everybody's on the same page, or at least 90% of the team is on the same page early. It doesn't just happen overnight. That's the number one. So when Texas was playing in 2005, going into that season, Mac allowed media into practice several times that year, only media. And you could just tell there was a crispness early to practice as well as a purpose. That's what it looks like. And so I don't think Texas is, quote unquote, expecting a national championship like they were going into 2005, right? They just aren't. This team didn't finish the way the 2004 team finished, even though they were in the Final Four, etc. That being said, early it looks like very crisp practice, very purposeful, what Steve Sarkisian's word for both of those, by the way, is intentional. He likes to say be intentional. That's what it looks like. And then on top of all of that, you see some explosiveness and some real dudes on the team, offense and defense. Texas had real dudes on that team in 05, right? That's what it'll look like. Does Texas have those real dudes this year? We'll see a little bit today. I can't wait. Practice. Some people are asking, are we going to be able to attend practice? We will be out there. There's a media viewing window for the first 15 to 30 minutes. And myself, Jerry, Rod Babers will be joining us as well out there. So we should all have some opinions and some eyes on what's going on. We're going to go live. I want to say this. We're going to go live immediately following that practice availability window, myself, Jerry, and Rod, so you guys can get up to date. And then we'll do a more full report after that at around 7 o'clock tonight on the live stream.
One of the things that I distinctly stuck in my mind and remember from before last season, Bobby, is what happened the first practice last year. The first three guys on the field outside of the specials who come over earlier was Worthy, Mitchell, and Whittington.
Yep.
And who are seen, and Jordan Whittington excluded from this, who are seen as divas on a football field? Wide receivers and corners, right? But when those guys were the first ones on the field, every day we were there for the media window. I remember us talking about that, saying, it's a very serious group. It's a very serious team. Because that's not, look, those guys walked over from Newhouse to the practice field, right? They didn't wait for the bus. They walked over by themselves. They got to the field first. There was intentionality, what Sark's word, with that. And you knew that guys were extremely locked in. Not that Xavier Worthy hadn't been locked in before, but you could tell that there was a mindset with those guys last year from the first practice that might have been different from years prior. And I'm going to be looking for anything like that the next 3 days that I see that we may be able to go memory recall on 4 months from now.
Yeah, we'll be out there early checking it out, won't we, Jerry?
Yeah.
We always get to practice early ourselves. So, join us this afternoon. We'll have all the reports. We'll also have full reports on Texas football as well. Just can't wait. 31 days. But today is the first day of fall training camp. Get out there and watch the guys. Somebody asked on the chat, Blake, whether or not Steve Sarkisian will be available to the media today. Yes, he will be immediately following the end of practice. So about 2 hours after we finish, or about an hour and a half after we finish the live stream, we'll all be over there listening to what Steve Sarkisian has to say and be talking about that as well. So he had the coordinators show up yesterday. He'll do the thing in front of the media later today.
I want to get to this. James Henson, is D-line Alex January redshirt are too good to keep out of the rotation. The rotation, that is going to be the competition coming out. But I reported on Texas Football Sunday that Alex January has very, very much impressed the Texas staff since arriving in January, and then all the way through the summer. Alex January will play this season. I was point blank told that. Now, is he going to find his way into the six-man rotation? That's a pretty tall leap on this team, because even PK said it. There's a lot of experience in depth on this team on the interior defensive line. There's a lot of college games played amongst that group of Alfred Collins, Vernon Broughton, Tia Savea, Bill Norton, Jermaine Lole. I mean, Aaron Bryant going into year 3, Dre Bledsoe going into year 3. There's a lot of experience with that group headed into fall practice. But I do think Alex January has done tremendous since he's been in Austin. He has a very bright future. And I do think you'll see him on the field some this year. I do not think he's a redshirt.
And I'm going to follow up James's question with another one that he has, since we're on the subject of defensive tackles. Has Tadir Mitchell gotten in good enough shape to contribute to the defensive line rotation?
That's to be determined. I can't say the same thing I just said about Alex January. So we'll see.
There you go.
Yep. We got a super chat that we need to jump over to real quick, guys. Shifting gears back to recruiting for just a moment, then we'll get to some more team stuff. Rudy, thank you, Rudy. He says, good morning, y'all. Any update on Javion Hilson? I may have missed them, but I recall Jerry interviewing him a few months ago, and his mom wanted him at Texas.
Yeah, I think his mom wanted him just to get away from the state of Florida and do something different. He remains committed to Florida State. He's in contact with other colleges still. These guys very rarely just shut it down. So he remains in contact with some people. But I know Texas loves the two edges they have committed, Lance Jackson and Smith Orogbo. If Texas ended up, if a Hayden Lowe from California or Javion Hilson called and said, hey, man, I want in, I think it's hard to turn that player down, that level player down. But I do know Texas loves the two guys they have. But does Javion Hilson in contact with Texas and others? Sure.
And then Tyler says, will Blue and Baxter split carries right down the middle each week, or will that depend on each matchup? So how will running back carries be divided up, y'all think?
I think we need to separate carries and touches. I think we need to go touches instead of carries with these two guys, because I think the passing game is going to factor in. Somebody asked yesterday, and we didn't get to it, could Jaden Blue have 25 receptions this year? I'm actually going to take the over.
I would too.
I'm going 30 to 35 receptions. So that's going to cut, the way he's going to be used would cut into a carries number. And Texas, when they're running their inside zone game, that's not the guy you're going to hand it to 12, 13 times like you are set at Baxter. Two different players. You want to use them both at their strength. So I would separate touches from carries. I think touches will be very similar, Bobby.
Well, I would say this: you want him catching 3 to 4 passes a game,
no doubt.
Okay, that's your 30 to 35, as opposed to 25. Hopefully, right? Hopefully, because maybe schools start or teams start saying, we're not going to let you do that, right? So there's always that aspect of it. The other thing I would add is something that Kyle Flood said yesterday. It's not just Baxter and Blue, guys. He was very quick, very, very quick to say, hey, we like what we see of Trey Wisner too, and some elements that he can bring to the table. So while I do think there's a pecking order of sorts, and Baxter and Blue are at the top of it, and I think Trey Wisner is third. But Trey Wisner, I mean, just the sense I got from listening to Kyle Flood yesterday was he's too good not to play. You know, there's some things he does better than the other two do. So if he can pass protect, if he's good out of the backfield, if he knows the play, I mean, all of those little things we talk about being consistent and no mental errors, etc. That's something to really circle, I think, and not just say this is a Baxter/Blue backfield right now. I mean, he was pretty straightforward about that in yesterday's presser.
Well, we've talked about running backs. Let's jump over to wide receivers. Cody Hook wants to know, are we expecting more of a receiver rotation this year than previous?
Well, Flood said it yesterday, and Sarkis said it before. They've got more receivers than they've ever had that are capable, like highly capable. I mean, they played 3 receivers yet last year, mostly out of need. And the fact that, you know, as good as Jonte Cook may have been as a freshman, you don't take Xavier Worthy off the field very often. You don't take Adonai Mitchell off the field very often. You don't take Jordan Whittington. Like Jerry said, as Jerry mentioned, those were 3 of your leaders last year, whether you realize it or not. So there weren't that many opportunities. This year, we think there are going to be more opportunities. There's 6 guys, really, from what I'm hearing, that are ready to go, they think, or at least close to ready to go. The question that we all have is, who's good? The cream rises to the top, right? Who's that going to be? I think Steve Sarkisian's got a hint of who it might be, or a feel for who it might be, but even he doesn't know right now. So that's what the next 30 days are for, before Colorado State.
And then we'll jump over to the other side of the field. Victor says, what does cornerback rotation look like?
To be determined. I think Manny Muhammad's got one locked. I think Gavin Holmes, obviously, begins fall practice as a starter at the other spot, up to Javion Cole. I think the one thing with Javion Cole to remember is the summer workouts are one thing, but he's known as a gamer by the Texas staff. They want to see him when the pads are on. That's the thing there, is because they think he is a playmaker when the pads are on and we're in more real football situations. So that is something to keep in mind there as far as the competition goes. I think, look, those three guys are going to be your top three. One of the interesting things that come out of fall camp for me will be, who's the fourth guy? Does Warren Roberson win that, or does a young guy, a Wardell Mack or a Santana Wilson, kind of come up and win that spot? I think if Santana Wilson had been here in the spring, he'd have something to say about it. But since he wasn't, I do think that puts him a little bit behind some others starting fall camp here, because Manny Muhammad had spring practice. I mean, that's a big deal, I think, at the cornerback position in your transition to college football. And people could say it is at every position, but I think some even more so than others. But I think cornerback, that's a really big transition, helps your transition to being in the spring, because you get accustomed to the physicality. It's a much more physical game at corner in major college football than high school football. And then you get look, the coverage, the recovery speed, the adjustment in that department is much different for guys when they have to kind of hit that gear than the high school ranks. So there's two major things that being an early enrollee, besides coverages, besides the strength and conditioning program, besides being in the room, is there two really big keys on the field there.
I would add this. I would add this at corner. Manny Muhammad last year became a guy exactly because of what Jerry's describing early in that conversation. Manny Muhammad is not, he wasn't really considered a potential starter last year until they started having scrimmages. And Manny Muhammad would punch a ball out. Manny Muhammad would intercept a pass. It wasn't that he was a better corner at that point than Ryan Watts or Terrence Brooks. But, you know, when they went to spring practice and they started having scrimmages, which they'll have every Saturday, by the way, or at least 2 or 3 Saturdays before the year. When they went to scrimmages, Manny Muhammad was causing turnovers more than any other cornerback. And that's what Jerry's trying to describe with the possibility, hopefully, of a Javion Cole, is somebody stepping up like that. One other note there, Jerry, how much is Texas going to try Jahdae Barron at corner? Pete Kwiatkowski mentioned him yesterday as corner and or safety.
Yeah.
So is he going to get double cross-trained there? I don't know. He said that the one of the pieces to remember I should mention this as it relates to what PK talked about yesterday, Jalen Gilbo. Okay, so just segue into that for a second here and stay with me. He said that of all the players on defense that could be a surprise to some people, to media, he immediately pointed out Jalen Gilbo. Okay, now obviously, Jahdae Barron is a returning 2-year starter at Star. Okay. So what do you do with Gilbo if Jahdae Barron's in front of him? And that's when Pete Kwiatkowski was really quick to say, well, you try to get your best 11 on the field. And I think that's the reality. Is Jalen Gilbo ultimately one of the best 11 on the field? If so, how do you make everything around that work? Maybe it's Jahdae Barron at corner. Maybe. We'll see how it works out. But based on what I heard yesterday, they're high on Jalen Gilbo again, Jerry. They just are.
Yeah. Yeah. He's got that chip on his shoulder, that golden triangle competitive chip on his shoulder. I've only covered one guy that didn't have it. But the vast majority of those guys have it, and he's got it. Joe Natural has a question real quick. Michael Terry, height, weight, 6'2.5", closing in on 6'3", about 215, 218, whenever. It depends on what day you weigh him. But Michael Terry, 80-inch wingspan, near 10-inch hands. That's kind of his deets.
Then our next question comes from Tyler. And Tyler asks, who on the defensive side of the ball needs to be the vocal leader / captain in y'all's opinion?
That's a great question.
Yeah, I think part of it is Baron Sorrell.
Yes.
I was just PK mentioned him in that role yesterday. Said that, look, that's the dude that we rely on and count on, and that we can rely on. It's not just wanting to be that guy. He can be that guy.
Yeah.
I think that when it comes to actual vocal leadership beyond that, I think Michael Taft was a guy that Jeff Banks pointed out as a leader overall of the teams. Steve Sarkisian has said that as well. David Benda was mentioned yesterday by PK. Although when it comes to helmet communication, and that's a different type of vocal because he'll be shouting out the play call, I guess, to his teammates. It looks like it's going to either be a safety or a linebacker, according to PK. So he hasn't decided who it's going to be yet, a safety or a linebacker. So we'll see what that means. But Sorrell, Benda, and Taft, probably the not captains per se, but leaders on defense at this point.
Okay, and then our next question, fellas, comes from, if I can find it here, Syracuse Horn, and he says, any chance that Arch plays in the red zone? Mobile quarterbacks change everything and stress the defense. Maybe that's the cure.
It's a tough one. Look, I don't see that. And that doesn't mean you can't have a play or two or something, but I don't know if I see that being a staple.
He just doesn't like to run the QB, guys.
Yeah, I mean, how many QB design runs?
I will say this, that changes your red zone offense pretty quick. I mean, if you have a running quarterback, that will open up even just the threat of it. It opens up some passing lanes and RPOs. It could be the cure for what ails you, but he just doesn't. Sark is not a believer in the QB run game, and although I think Arch Manning can run, I don't know that's why he came to Texas, if that makes sense. Right. And so you're a little concerned about that as well. But look, more QB run in the red zone. I get if Texas would have had and then this is not a knock on Quinn Ewers or whoever the quarterback is at Texas. Steve Sarkisian does not like to run the quarterback. Period. Full stop. Doesn't mean he's against it, but he doesn't like to.
Yeah, I think if Sark ever had to go that direction, the offensive line isn't moving people in the red zone, and you just have a lot of issues. I think that's the last place he probably wants to go. Not that it's not an interesting thought. Dylan Gabriel's not a runner, and you don't always have to be. It depends on how you want to spread people out, but that's just not Sark's MO.
Okay, before we get on to these final few questions here, Bobby, I'm going to let you tell folks out there about Adam Lowy and the Lowy Law Firm one last time.
Yeah, absolutely. Adam's been with us just from the start of On Texas Football. We appreciate his sponsorship. Couldn't do shows like this without him. Reach out to him if you've been injured in a car wreck, truck wreck, automobile accident of any kind. With 20 plus years of experience in the Austin area and around the state of Texas, Adam's who you want to reach out to and talk to and consult with. Free consultation, no strings attached. If you think you might be due some compensation because of an injury in an automobile accident, that's LowyLawFirm.com. LowyLawFirm.com. Thanks again, Adam, for your sponsorship of Coffee and Football.
I love this comment. Bush push only. So yeah, we're gonna get the Baxter push this year, maybe.
Yeah, Quinn will need it because Quinn's not a quarterback sneak guy. I don't think.
No.
That's not his game.
Okay, as I said, we got time for just a couple more questions here, and let's do a recruiting one real quick from Bevo92. He says, Jerry, why do you keep leaving Jamie French off the list of upcoming commitments? His commitment date set. He's a 5-star stud receiver, and Texas has at least a 50-50 shot.
Yeah, I always mention that when we bring up that graphic. We put in the 4 guys that were locked in dates. Then French is the 5th guy with the locked in dates there, and then we have 4 other guys that don't have their dates to be determined. But no, Jamie French he's just one of the very, very top targets for Texas. Has been. It's going to be Texas or Miami. Texas has been a good spot. We're a little bit less than 1 month away from his decision date on August 30th, his mom's birthday.
The other dates are before Jamie French's is the issue, guys. I mean, let's fix the graphics so we don't get that question next time. Okay, we'll get with our producer and get that changed for you guys. That's no knock on Jamie French, nor where we think he stands with the University of Texas. So don't read anything into that. Is my comment.
And then our next question from Odin Horns. He says, "Do you think Brandon Baker will play much this year?"
We talked about this a little bit. Will be a video coming up. I'll say this for Brandon Baker. He's 25-ish pounds heavier than when he played as a senior, and it's good weight. And Flood talked yesterday about Malik Ogbo working at some tackle this summer. You have Jaden Chapman. You have Andre Kojo. Obviously, Trevor Gooseby's the number 2 left tackle, I believe, starting fall practice. But at right tackle, if Brandon Baker wins the second team spot as a freshman, and I'm not saying he is, if he does, would be saying a lot for him, because Texas has built depth to a situation where you can have him third team, just get him ready to compete for that job next year. But if he breaks through a little this year and he ends up being the second team guy, that says great things for his future, because there is real competition there for him, whether that's Jaden Chapman, who's a heck of an athlete and has added really good weight and strength to his frame, whether that's a Malik Ogbo. So there's experience. There's guys with more experience ahead of him, older players, more developed bodies. But if he comes in and ends up the second team right tackle during the season, then and I think he's got an extremely bright future, multi-year starter. But my point is if he kind of busted through a little bit this year, that would say a heck of a lot for him.
And Nathan Duck says, "Bobby and Jerry, heading into the SEC, where do you think Texas offense ranks among all the offenses in the SEC?"
I think that most people would rank it at best 3rd right now, behind Georgia and Ole Miss, each of whom return their quarterbacks and are very talented. I think for sure Georgia, on its face, has the best offense in the country, and therefore the SEC. And why I think that is, one, I think they have the most likely guy to go 1-1 in the NFL draft at quarterback. And I think that they most likely have the best offensive line in the country. And you know as well as I do that Georgia is going to have skill pieces. Now, will they have skill pieces like they had a year ago? I don't know. One of them just got arrested last week. So I question that, but I would say 3rd is where most people would put Texas. I think that some other guys that might be in that category, Tennessee, and then I don't think Kalen DeBoer with Jalen Milroe is going to have many problems moving the football. I think that Hugh Freeze is an offensive coach, even with a quarterback that I don't think necessarily is good. Brian Kelly, another offensive coach that's got a history of it. But after Georgia, I think it goes Ole Miss, Texas, and then I have a big question mark right now. How do some of these younger teams get going? Does Kalen DeBoer have what he wants to build Alabama into what he sees his team being? I don't know yet, but it would be 1, 2, 3 probably.
Yeah, I think if Missouri, runs the football as effective as they have the last 3 years, they're going to be a top 3-4 offense in the SEC, because they got quarterback and all the wide receivers and the tight end back and enough on the offensive line. I mean, anytime you have a third-year starting quarterback. You have probably the best receiver in the country, Luther Burden. They're one of the top 2 or 3. And you have all those wideouts back. You have your tight ends. You have all your safety blankets back. You have enough on the offensive line. If they are able to run the balls effectively as they have the last couple of years, it's going to be a different back. Then they're going to end up being one of the better offenses too, for sure.
And then our last question today, guys, and on a somewhat related note, King Me says, does Texas have the oldest and most experienced defense in the SEC?
They don't have the most starters back on defense in the SEC. I would. What's interesting to me is if you count transfers in. I mean, is Ole Miss up there defensively because of the transfers?
That's probably that may be true.
I mean, the linebacker,
3 2-year starters or whatever from different.
The linebacker from Arkansas, Walter Nolan, Princely Emanamilian. A couple of guys in the secondary. I mean, they got older and a lot more experience. So on their defense, and Jared, obviously, Ivy's a returning guy. Pegues is a returning guy. They now they have one young linebacker, Suntarine Perkins, who needs to take a big step, but they're very experienced. If you count guys that have portaled in now, experience playing together, that's a different thing. That's a totally different conversation. There's been a lot of turnover.
Ole Miss is all in this year, bro.
All in.
All in this year.
They saw the 12-team playoff. They went in.
Yep.
All right, y'all. Well, that's going to do it for today's episode of Coffee and Football. We want to thank Will Matthews for joining us as a special guest. He was absolutely phenomenal. There's no doubt about that. We got to thank Adam Lowy of the Lowy Law Firm. Also want to give a special shout out to Adam. He's been helping teachers across the state clear the list, including my wife. He's home in the Lowy Law Firm, done a phenomenal job. So thank you for that. And of course, Manscaped as well. Thank you all for tuning in. The great comments, questions, super chats. Bobby, I know it's practice day, so tell folks what they can expect later today as you look all giddy and excited.
Oh, dude, I tell you, like a kid in a candy store. Today we're going to have state of the program. Jerry, CJ, and I will talk a little bit, and we're going to try to define a little bit more what was said yesterday and give our thoughts on it from the assistant coaches or coordinators that came by. Then again, we're going to go live around, I think it's going to be around 3:15, whenever they let us out of, or whenever we finish with the viewing window for the University of Texas. We'll go live immediately, myself, Jerry, and Rod Babers, who will also be on hand with us. And then we'll come back this evening with a live stream at 7 o'clock. We're going to have also written content. We've already got 3 or 4 different stories up this morning on OnTexasFootball.com. Please join us over there and just talk football with us, ask us a question, etc. You know, it's football. It's football time right now, and I can't wait for that all to happen. Appreciate you guys very much, and we're going to share it with you as much as we can, man.
By the way, if this is mom, proud mama. I don't know if that's
Oh yeah, Senna Benda. Thank you, Coffee and Football. Yeah.
I mean, the Texas staff was effusive in the leadership praise for David Benda. So congrats to you.
Absolutely.
All right. And if you haven't already, no better time to head on over to OnTexasFootball.com, become an OTFOG using promo code OTFOG, $39.95 for 1 year. Between that and right here on the On Texas Football YouTube channel, you will be covered around the clock for all the latest Longhorn news. And we will be back same time, same place tomorrow morning. So for Bobby Burton and Jerry